So, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for our OD Tools webinar. This webinar is about EQ-SWOT in coaching and sales development. My name is Didi Kocis, and I'm head of Valoro Consulting in Hungary, one of the partners of OD Tools, and it's really a pleasure for us to be hosting this session. And before we jump into the topic, let me ask you some questions. And please write your answers in the chat. So first question is, where are you right now? So which city are you? Berlin, Istanbul, Nairobi, Kenya. Wow, Roma, and Hungary perhaps. Okay, thank you. The next question, what comes to your mind when you hear the word EQ or emotional intelligence? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Leadership, self-awareness, feeling better, thinking. Thank you. And then another question I would like to ask, and this is my last question. What's your experience level with EQ-SWOT from 1 to 5, where 5 is I know everything, and 1, this is perhaps the first time or one of the, the earliest times to get to meet this tool. So from 1 to 5, your experience level with EQ-SWOT. Please write in the chat. 4, we got a 4. Well, if yours is 4, then what can I write? Come on, Gabor. Massimiliano is also 4, 5. Wow, we've got kind of experts here today. So I'm really happy again to welcome you here, and I hope we can learn a lot from each other as well during this webinar. First of all, we are going to have a short introduction on OD tools and the distributor network. Then we are going to dive into the topic of EQ and get to know EQ-SWOT and the use of EQ-SWOT better. And at the end, we are going to have you are going to have opportunities for a Q&A session. And now I'd like to hand over things to Gabor Nagy, founder and managing director of OD Tools. And over to you, Gabor.
Thank you, Ildiko. And good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this session on EQ-SWOT and its use. A few words about OD Tools. We are developers of psychometric tools and questionnaires for organizational effectiveness and team effectiveness and 360 tools. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce the main speaker, Tini Lobzer. He is the founder and CEO of New Insight. And I know Tini for many years. At the early 2000s, I forgot the exact date, maybe 2006, we started to cooperate, and I did a course in London, the Business Coaching Foundation. Yeah. An advanced course, and Tini was the facilitator, and it was a great program, and Tini did a fantastic facilitation that I remember even today, and it was a real privilege. So it is my honor to have the opportunity to cooperate with Tini for all over these years, and I warmly welcome you, Tini, to share your views and your experience with EQ-SWOT.
Thank you, Gabor, and thank you, Ildiko, for hosting us today. I see some familiar faces. Today, I'm going to be offering up a perspective on emotional intelligence and EQ-SWOT in particular. I'm going to go through a couple of slides just to offer up my own personal point of view on how I apply it. And then I'm going to go through 2 interesting sample reports just to give you some insight onto how I interpret that. But as Gabor said, stop at any time and just put your hand up and ask questions and feel free, because this is just a great experience for all of us. And 2 things happen to us in life. We either succeed or we learn. And we're going on that journey today. And please support me where you can, and let me start by sharing, and then we take it from there. It's our choice whether we want to embrace life or fight life, and we need to live a great life. And EQ-SWOT helps us map an understanding of who we are from a emotional intelligence perspective. But the whole point of EQ map or emotional intelligence is you shouldn't only measure emotional intelligence. There's a whole element of mapping involved around the measurement of emotional intelligence. And first step is the assessing of an individual with the online tools. Then the key is the readback and curiosity conversation to empower individuals and discover together what this emotional intelligence EQ-SWOT report is telling us and having a conversation. But the work begins with the readback of the report with the individual, having a conversation from a curiosity perspective to empower the individual. And then we go and help them reflect, look at habit forming activities. And this is where the work begins. And the habit forming activities don't have to be something new that I have to start. How many of us have actually said, oh, my New Year's resolution is this, and it never works by February? Hands up. It's stopped by February. And as soon as we create something that we want to change, adjacent to something that we're doing already, that's when habits start forming for us. And the emotional intelligence EQ-SWOT report is a starting point for a discussion. And we should also remember that we're three-dimensional human beings, and the report is a two-dimensional piece of information. And therefore, having a conversation with someone is helping them to understand and recognize which part of them arrives in the room and how they choose to show up. So, what is emotional intelligence? It's how am I feeling? Have I got my emotions under control? And is this the best version of myself I'm representing? Then we go into how are they feeling? How can I add value here? Do I really need to get involved? And so, from an emotional intelligence perspective, it's an understanding self, what emotions I'm feeling, and how am I interacting with the group or colleagues or team that I'm interacting with or working with. We have four emotions. There are loads of permutations around those emotions, but the four key emotions are happy, sad, angry, scared. And that is what shows up on a daily basis for us from an emotional perspective. And it's how we choose to manage that for ourselves within an emotional intelligence context. The final element is how does ego play a part? And how does ego come in and potentially contaminate the way that we're working? And ego is best represented in transactional analysis, whereas parent, adult, child ego, and all three of these egos are with us every morning we get up and every evening we go to bed. These are the three egos we carry with our emotional intelligence toolkit and interact with people on a daily basis. And when we look at the parent ego, it's rules, it's protection, it's control. How am I supporting? How am I guiding and caring? I'm also critical and I'm blaming others here and there. And then we go into the child ego, which is free, playful, expressive, and sometimes defensive. And the ego that actually hopefully dominates for us is the parent ego, which is grounded in the present moment, looking and separating facts from feelings, and also creates a space between stimulus and response for us. Creating a bit of space between stimulus and response, i.e. thought and how I need to feel and express myself, may help us offer up a stronger emotional intelligence in the frame of work that we do on a daily basis. Where I'd like to go next is just from an EQ-SWOT perspective and how it helps us map ourselves. So on the left-hand side, we have self-management, and on the right-hand side, we have others awareness. And you'll see the words are different. On the left-hand side, it's self-management, and on the others, it's others awareness. Can we manage other people? No. They have got their own world and need to manage themselves. And that's where emotional intelligence comes and overlaps, is that I'm managing my own emotions and my own self-management of how I want to respond in this world. And I'm expecting someone else to do the same. But sometimes people don't. But let's just be aware of those as we go along from an emotional intelligence perspective. Building on self-awareness, It's how am I sensing and identifying my own feelings? What are my strengths and limitations? Notice I don't use the word weakness here, and I know it's an EQ-SWOT, but I use the word limitation because I feel limitations is a word that I can actually do something about. When I look at self-regulation, how am I staying focused? How am I being patient? Am I clarifying my values? And how measured am I? And what is the pace and energy that I bring to the situation that I find myself in? And then from a social awareness point of view, it's the decoding that happens. I can't manage, but I can become aware. And what is it that I'm seeing and how are people expressing themselves in their body language? And also the words that they use, the language that they use, and the emotional expression of others. And then from a social skills perspective, it's the engagement piece. And how am I expressing my ideas that I feel may land in the space that I'm interacting with? And how am I cooperating with others? And there's a big difference between collaborate and cooperate. How it translates into everyday interactions, it always starts with self. What is the language that you're using? What is the experience that you're creating? How are you making others feel? And then remember, emotional intelligence is felt first in all the interactions that we're having on a daily basis. That's kind of where I wanted to go with today's element. I just wanted to close off with some of the emotional intelligence language that we use and how we can help and alter that in our daily use. So who's familiar with all these sentences in this board? I mean, what happened? Let's stick to the plan. We've got to meet our targets. We're all talking those languages. So what happened? Help me understand what's going on for you in that moment. Let's stick to the plan. Is the plan still working for everybody involved? Do we need to revisit it? Let's meet our targets. How can we achieve our goals while also supporting each other's capacity and well-being? Can we see that the difference in tone from a emotional intelligence language that we use helps us gain stronger credibility? Here's just another example. Let's just keep it professional. I mean, how many times do you hear that? Let's not overthink this. Or easy words that come to us. Let's use emotional intelligence language. Let's pause and consider this carefully. It matters to the people involved. Everybody's had a tough day. Now, these last two are my personal favorites. It's not personal. It is personal. But let's acknowledge the impact this may have on you and let's have a positive intent in our approach. Let's move past this, please. Let's take time to process what's happened and what have we learned here? There's two things that happen. We either succeed or we learn. And remember the four emotions that come into play in any other and they can be permeated in any other way, but it's happy, sad, angry, scared. And those are the emotions that you need to kind of almost sense and feel for yourself. And so let me give you some tips around what I offer up some of my clients from an emotional intelligence perspective. Give yourself a couple of seconds, pause before you respond. The 10-second challenge. Name what you're feeling. Identify, embrace, know what it is that's happening in that space for you. What is the narrative? Remember, we can't manage others. We can only observe and then choose the response that helps the situation and not just you. And so from a closing perspective, and then I'll go in and show you some of the reports just to talk you through that for yourself, for ourselves, is how are you creating great experiences? What is it that you're doing from an emotional intelligence perspective that is creating great experiences? So what I'll do next is I will lower my hand. I'll share some EQ reports. Unless anybody's got a question based on what I've just offered up from an information perspective, let me share my screen and go through a EQ-SWOT report for us. Just a thumbs up if you can see that. So what I do when I've generated a report, whether I'm working with leaders in the social care industry, CJ, you'd love this, work in the sales industry from a sales map perspective and looking at how people approach buyers or their sales approach from an emotional intelligence perspective, or if I work in a coaching environment, all of the reports I approach the same way. I obviously check that the name's correct, and then I go right to the back of the report. And at the back of the report, I check self-presentation and impression management. And the scores I'm looking for here are 4 and below. I prefer 3 and below, but 4 and below are still tolerable for me on both of those. Then I go up and I look at how long people took. And so I look at test length. I'm not too worried which were the fastest or the slowest knots within this assessment, but I look how long they took. And for me, there is a good sign between a 6-minute and almost like a 15-minute assessment times period is what I look at within the assessment time span. And then I go and I don't worry about any of the development suggestions because that's a discussion for me. The development suggestions is a 2-dimensional draw from a result based on answers given by an individual. And we know that they're 3-dimensional. So I have a discussion with my people and I have a look at these 4 areas. So if we look at this report as it stands at the minute, ironically, people want to go to all the scores on the left-hand side. Emotional control, stress management, assertiveness. What's going on here? You're not self-disciplined. I go to the right. This person has got emotional awareness. This person has got congruent decision-making. This person reads people brilliantly and has got good empathy. Their emotional influence and collaboration is high. And so those are the strengths, and building relationships are the things that I start with. So the reason that assertiveness sitting on the left-hand side, stress management, emotional control, and self-discipline is potentially insecurity. It's got nothing to do with the way that they're delivering their piece of work. And how can I help them use the decision-making, the reading people, the empathy, the emotional influence and collaboration that they have as strengths to draw in a stress management element, to help them in their assertiveness approach. And so now we have a coaching discussion about what do you love about your positive mindset or your congruent decision-making? And how is that the fact that you get so excited and your emotional control and stress management sits on the left-hand side of the score, and that contaminates sometimes your interactions. Talk to me a little bit about what happens there. And so now it becomes a discussion and a mapping of the individual rather than a 2-dimensional score. So can we see that? Yeah. Okay. So can we see that this score sits 100% on the right-hand side, potentially? And so what makes this an emotional intelligence limitation? Anybody? The fact that all of the elements from an emotional assessment perspective sits on the right-hand side of the score chart. What makes this a limitation from an emotional intelligence perspective?
Could you show the distortion scale of this report, Tini?
Say that again, Chin. I didn't understand what you said.
Okay, I want to look at the distortion scale of this report.
Lovely, thank you. Yes, let's go right to the back. Let's go right to the bottom and see that.
Yes.
The other element is that you can't read this person, can you? They're so controlled. They're so calm. They're so cool and collected. And as a leader, that's intimidating. Yes or no? If you're so chilled, so cool, your mindset's always positive, your energy's right up there, your self-expression and assertiveness is right up there, you're too cool for school, man. And you are an intimidating leader because you're so calm.
Yes.
Because you're so measured. People don't want to walk up to you and have a conversation with you, potentially. So let's go to where Chin led us. So 9 minutes is a good place. 9 minutes isn't a bad score. But impression management sits on a 5. So they're unusually virtuous or honest and self-critical. They're between those two. They're not making their minds up. So there is a little bit of bias that they try to present within this assessment. But I had a good conversation with this person. And yes, the 3 score from a self-presentation is a good alignment for us. So yeah, I just thought I'd offer you some emotional intelligence journeys that I've gone on from a presentation perspective and show you the 2 reports that stood out for me in the work that I've done this year so far. But I hope that that's been helpful for you to get a good understanding from an EQ-SWOT perspective and how the report generates itself. But the 2 things I'd like you to take away is that doing the assessment is step 1. The work sits in doing a curious and collaborative feedback and readback with the individual and helping them create new habits adjacent to the ones they've already got for better emotional intelligence. Thank you, everybody, for your time. I think I'm on time from a 20-minute perspective. I appreciate it. Any questions? Silence is golden. So let me ask you a question. Out of everything that you saw today in the presentation and in the reports, what are the 2 things that stood out for you that you felt you've learned today? Put it in the chat. CJ, you're funny. Chin, just elaborate on what you're saying. Oh, you've got some new ideas for an EQ presentation. Oh, I see what you're saying. I like it. Yeah, no, good. And yes, start with strengths. Yeah. Enrico, I think that's kind of where I would want to leave it. I'm happy to interact with people offline if they need to. They can just ping me a message or come via Gabor or you, and just happy to chat with people and just talk through some. There is a lot of value in the EQ-SWOT report, but it's how you manage that for the individual so they can get the best from it. Would be my big tip for you guys.
Thank you very much, Tini. And this we didn't rehearse this event, so it's a little bit like a jazz concert, and we are perfectly on time. So the rest of the agenda will be I will add a few more things as the developer of the EQ-SWOT instrument. Then we will have maybe a few minutes for another round of comments and communication. And we are going to close the show today with a song, the EQ-SWOT song. So I'm going to share my screen. Why EQ is important. I'm just showing to you guys. I think you know that. But this is for our practitioners that these materials will be available. So when you need to make a presentation, you can use also these to talk about the importance of EQ. And this is a kind of structure of competences that are related to interpersonal communication. Outside, you see the fruits of the tree, which are the work skills, the job skills. This is what a company wants, right? We talk about communication skills, negotiation skills, decision making, focus, perseverance, resilience, stress tolerance, and things like this. This is what the job requires, what success requires. And then we have the branches of the tree that supports the leaves and the flowers and the fruits, right? And these branches are the emotional intelligence skills, or 16 skills. You can see them here with green. You could see that also in the report. And I'd like to draw your attention to the stem, to the roots, because the tree has a structure and it has a stem and the roots where everything else is growing out. And the emotional intelligence skills, the structure has been verified and it's really scientific. And the STEM is emotional awareness and emotional literacy, the knowledge about emotions and the ability to identify our state moment to moment, self-awareness. And self-awareness is a super skill that if you can train, then it will impact everything that you do. So its positive effect can multiply to so many things. And I think this is uh, a key message that you can deliver to people. And that's why emotional intelligence can have such a multiplying effect in so many areas of life. It can be really a window opener for people, especially people like me who come from a technical background and not from a family where emotional intelligence language was practiced or from a school environment when we were learning such things. And there are so many people like me. For me, it was really new and really transformative experience to open this new window, the world of emotions. So, what is EQ-SWOT? I just go through these. Tini also introduced these. And from the viewpoint of the tool, we are following the Goldman tradition because there are other traditions as well, which is very much workplace oriented and not theoretical, but outcome focused. So are these skills traits or some of them wider, some of them narrower? Maybe there are different parts of the, we don't care about these academic classifications and nuances, just like Goleman. We focus on the outcome. How can we reach people and what are the things that can make a difference for them? Yeah, the questionnaire 13-minute is the median completion time, and you can do it on a mobile phone as well. The reports, we have seen them, the SWOT analysis, and I also agree with Tini that this is more for reading and for self-reflection. And we should uh, talk with people about their situation. And then the development suggestions and the distortion scales. Here, I'd like to add a bit more information. Also, we have here some sample items to better understand what contributes to impression management. And 1, 2, 3, 4 is the best, as Tini mentioned. However, the 5 is still acceptable. It is the 8, 9, 10 where the chance of kind of intentional or maybe subconscious, but definitely some extra spin, some kind of uh, defensing mechanism is obvious and might be problematic. And about the self-presentation, here I'd like to say that even a 9 or a 10 is not a problem if the person can back it up with real world achievements. Because these are items like when it comes to learning something, I'm usually one of the top students, I'm one of the top professionals in my field, and there are some people who are simply they are. And then it is a sign of a healthy self-confidence. And the two, the self presentation and the impression management can be very different also as well. So they are somewhat different. And I met people that had high scores on every scale and also high score in self-presentation.
Yes.
And it was true. I could also feel it. So that is also possible. However, there are also people who are very humble. And even though my perceived emotional intelligence skills were also higher, but they scored themselves lower, and also their self-presentation score is low. So then it is really the humble style has an overall impact in the score. So that's why talk is so important, because uh, there are three main areas where we can have distortion about ourselves. One is our honest, how we see ourselves, and then how we want to present it. In one way, do we want to hide our weaknesses? And on the other hand, do we overstate our strengths, or are we very humble about our strengths? So we need to find these out. And in the development, a one-on-one discussion is perfect. In a recruitment situation, it would be more behavior and interview, role play, and panel discussion, because we may have our own biases when we evaluate somebody's emotional intelligence. Yeah, and we also have resources. There's also a group report where you can see the distribution of scores, means of scales, and all these support application in recruitment, learning and development, coaching, sales and development of sales and service people and leaders. And to sum it up, so as we have seen, it's not only about a questionnaire and reports, but it's also about a methodology to validate, methodology to reflect, to have development discussions on people, to start a development cycle. So EQ-SWOT can be a central piece to a learning ecosystem, a key piece to the emotionally intelligent workplace. And that was it. How are we doing with time? Yeah, we have a few minutes for questions and comments.
In sorry, in my experience in Vietnam market, so when we do the EQ SWOT coaching, not talking to the leader, so we need to do data from EQ first. So we ask them to do the CEO or the leader took the EQ SWOT by themselves first, and the second for their team, and we create the report, the group report for, and we ask a question like how you think about your positioning or your emotional here in a team. Because of the leader EQ is very so impact to the team or the organization, so that we need to have the two data. The first data is the leader data, the second need the team data, so we can combine a collaboration to make more effective in the coaching. That's very that's my experience in Vietnam. So that my client here, so they took a lot, some group here, they took a lot of EQs every year, so that they can easily to see how the EQ changes in their organization. That's the way. Thank you.
Thank you for the sharing, Chin. Other questions, comments? All welcome.
Gabor, please show your last page of your presentation, three faces. I would like to say something about that.
This one or the verification?
One before. Yep, that one. Potential source of assessment errors. Yeah. This one trigger me to think about some points of some kinds of other assessments. And what I am taking from this presentation, which is very valuable for me, I have been working with emotional intelligence more than 10 years, with different assessments like 6 seconds, like Genos. I also aware of Daniel Goleman ones. And today I really like the outputs of the assessment. Because when I've worked with different assessments, okay, the tools is fine and effective, but I feel emptiness about the output. So this is incredibly important for me to have a look on that site as a result, as an output. I know that once Joshua Friedman, the CEO of the 6 Seconds, once in his video says, at 6 Seconds, we create the how to the Daniel Goleman's model. We add, we look through to the how part of emotional intelligence. Okay, what part is clear? But we think about more on the how part. And now I find out one missing part. If we do how we do, but at the end, what is the result? What kind of result that we're gonna end up? So my EQ journey, by the help of Gabor and Auth tools, you give me a very valuable part of my journey, the result, and this very critical 3 phases to get that result. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks. And all roads lead to Rome, or many approaches, and at the end, it's about the same human experience, right? So we should see many overlaps between the different models and tools and schools, and we can definitely learn from each other. Thanks. Other comments, questions?
Massimiliano, I see.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Oh, thanks, Gabor, and thanks, guys, for this presentation. It was very helpful. I think that emotional intelligence, from my experience with managers and with entrepreneurs, should be the first analysis we should do, because we know how much is important for the business to manage people, and how much is not the focus of a consultancy, you know. I think this tool could be very helpful, because if we use tools, maybe people will will be more, more open to take awareness, to be aware of their self. So this tool is very helpful, because it opens to one of the most important things for leadership and for life. That is to be aware of our emotions and to be aware of other emotions. And more than everything is the reactivity, because I see that one of the most important problems that people have is reactivity. And even if we teach, for example, the Ellis tool of ABC and how to manage reactivity, but it is still one of the most important problems we have in life and in the job. So thanks for this focus, because it's very important for our job.
Thank you. Okay, then I share with you the song, the EQ song, before we close. Okay. Hope you can hear it and see.
The emotions rise like waves upon the deep. A restless tide that never goes to sleep, but you can learn to read the shifting wind, to find the strength that's always within. With EQ-SWOT as the chart you hold, to navigate the waters brave and bold. You sense the wind and use the ocean's power to guide your ship through every trial and hours. 16 skills guiding your way, self and others every day. Strengths and weaknesses clear to see, with a SWOT analysis for you and me. Oh, sail on, find your course. Oh, chart the winds of force, for recruitment or for L&D. Find the talent and the clarity, spotting where you've added extra spin. Distortion scales check the truth within. Raise the sails, let insight show strengths and gaps before we row. 16 skills guiding your way, self and others every day. Strengths and weaknesses clear to see, with a SWOT analysis for you and me. Oh, sail on, find your course. Oh, chart the winds of force.
Micro, micro.
Fantastic.
So thank you very much for everyone being here. And just the last thought, yesterday I had a meeting with an HR expert in Hungary who said 80% of the leaders in Hungary coming from the fields of finance and technology. So you can imagine how much they need these skills. So, and I think perhaps in the world, we have similar numbers if we would measure among the leaders. Okay, so thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate our experts sharing their thoughts, and for your attendance, and see you next time in July with our next topic.